talk about giving. What if it wasn't about pressure or obligation? What if instead it was about joining in on a cycle of increase? Today we're going to dive into a framework that totally reframes giving, moving it away from being a duty and into something called the grace of giving.
I mean, come on, we've all been there, right? That moment when the offering plate comes your way and you feel that little pang of obligation, maybe even a bit of guilt or pressure. It's a super common feeling, for sure.
But what if that pressure isn't the point at all? The source material we're exploring today argues that there's a completely different way to approach this, one that swaps out that heavy feeling of obligation for a sense of freedom and even joy.
So, at its absolute heart, this idea draws a really clear line in the sand. On one side, you've got giving that comes from a place of grace, and on the other, giving that comes from a place of pressure.
This verse right here from 2 Corinthians is pretty much the cornerstone of the whole idea. The key phrase is, as he purposes in his heart. You see, this isn't about a snap decision made in a high-pressure moment. It's a choice, a decision that's made thoughtfully, intentionally, way beforehand.
And this is how the source defines those two opposing forces. Law is giving because you feel you have to, maybe because you're afraid of being judged. Grace, on the other hand, is giving because you want to. It's a joyful response, not a reluctant requirement.
Okay, so if we really want to get this idea of cheerful giving, we have to look at the internal mindset behind it. And it really all comes down to what's going on in the giver's heart.
Now this is where it gets really fascinating. The source makes this distinction between the heart and the soul. Think of the heart as the command center, the CEO's office, where your will and your intellect make a conscious choice. The soul, by contrast, is where all the emotion lives. It just experiences the decision that the heart already made. So a grace-based decision is made intentionally, from the heart, not as some emotional pressure on the soul.
And with that distinction in mind, the text lays out several motives for giving that completely miss the mark. You know, things like giving just so other people see you do it, or giving with this feeling of annoyance, or, and this is a big one, just giving because you feel like you have to. The source is clear. All of these are coming from the wrong place.
So what in the world is a cheerful giver? Well, get this. The original Greek word is hilaros, which is exactly where we get our word hilarious. And the idea isn't just about plastering on a smile. It's about giving with a joy that is so confident in God's provision that to an outsider it might even look a little crazy, hilarious even. It's all about giving with absolute trust.
And that radical trust is the foundation for the central metaphor that explains how this all works. It's this concept of seed, bread, and increase.
In this framework, any resource that comes your way actually has a dual purpose. Part of it is bread. That's for right now. It's what you need to live on. But another part is seed, and that's what you're given to invest, to sow for a future harvest. The real key, of course, is learning to tell the difference between the two.
And right here we see that cycle in action. It's a simple loop. First, God supplies both the seed and the bread. Second, we do our part. We sow the seed in faith. Third, God does the heavy lifting and multiplies it, making sure the return is way bigger than what we put in. And finally, we reap the harvest, which gives us more bread to live on, and, this is crucial, more seed to start the whole cycle all over again.
But here is a really, really important point. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme. The harvest isn't just about financial gain. According to the source, the ultimate goal is to increase the fruits of your righteousness. In other words, it's about growth in your character, your kindness, your spiritual maturity. That's the real prize.
So, if this cycle is actually working in someone's life, what's the result? Well, it leads to a pretty profound shift in how we look at things like stewardship and influence.
A grace-based approach like this basically rewires how you think about finances. Your trust moves from your bank account to divine provision. Your mindset changes from, this is mine, to, I'm just managing this. Money stops being an idol and becomes a tool. And the outcome? When you're faithful managing a little, you get trusted with more responsibility and more influence.
The parable of the talents just captures this principle perfectly. Remember? The servant who is faithful with a small amount was given authority over much, much more. The argument here is that being faithful with your finances can directly lead to greater spiritual influence and responsibility.
All right, to wrap this all up, the source material uses this powerful story from the Bible to really crystallize the massive difference between these two mindsets. It's a tale of two very, very different givers.
First up, we've got the rich young ruler.
This guy was trying to earn his way to eternal life by following all the rules. He was operating under law. But the moment he was asked to actually give, his attachment to his wealth was so strong that he just walked away, sad.
I mean, the contrast here could not be more stark. The ruler, who's motivated by rules, clings to his money and finds nothing but sorrow. Then you have Zacchaeus, who's motivated by a personal encounter with grace, and he voluntarily gives his wealth away and finds joy and salvation. It's a complete flip.
And here's Zacchaeus' response. No one even had to tell him to do it. His encounter with grace just overflowed into this radical, voluntary, and joyful act of generosity. See, he wasn't trying to earn salvation. He was responding to it.
And this right here is the core takeaway of the whole thing. Following the law can lead to a closed fist, to clinging tightly to what you have. But a genuine experience of grace, the source argues, just opens the hand naturally. Generosity becomes this joyful reflex, not some heavy requirement you have to fulfill.
And that leaves us with one last thought to chew on. If you stop seeing giving as a debt you have to pay and instead start seeing it as a seed you get to plant in faith, what does that change? It shifts the entire dynamic from loss to potential, from obligation to opportunity. And according to this text, that one simple shift is absolutely everything.